For 7 days, multiple U.S. and Canadian naval ships surrounded the area. Divers were sent down not to recover wreckage, but to observe when researchers finally accessed government records. Then, on October 4th, 1967, something crashed into the ocean near a small fishing village in Canada. Dozens of people saw it. Police responded. The military got involved. And yet, no wreckage was ever found. Some called it Canada's Roswell. But what actually happened that night is far more unsettling. This wasn't just one sighting. At least 11 UFO sightings were reported across eastern Canada within 24 hours. It started on October 3rd, when cargo pilots flying over Nova Scotia reported seeing an unidentified object. Then, on the night of October 4th, things escalated. Just before 8 p.m., two brothers saw three slow-moving white lights above the clouds, two dim, one brighter behind them. The sighting lasted 5 minutes. At 10 p.m., a 12-year-old boy named Chris Stiles saw a round object glowing dull orange from his bedroom window. Through binoculars, he estimated it to be about 60 feet or 18 meters wide. It was moving toward him. Moments later, another witness confirmed the same object. At 10:30 p.m., a photographer on a beach saw three lights forming a triangle. Two amber lights below, one blue above. They remained motionless for over 15 minutes. Then a police constable reported a glowing object about 200 to 300 feet above the tree line. It was shaped like an upside-down flame with sparks coming out. It made no sound. And these weren't isolated sightings. Reports kept coming in across the entire coastline. Then, at 11:20 p.m., everything changed. 18-year-old Laurie Wickens was driving along Highway 3 with four friends. As they entered Shag Harbor, they saw it. Four flashing yellow lights in a straight horizontal line, about 60 feet wide, flying just 200 feet above the ocean. The lights turned off, then came back on one by one in sequence. At the same time, another group of witnesses saw a similar object, this time reddish-orange lights attached to a dark shape. Then suddenly, the object tilted to a 45-degree angle and began descending toward the water. Trees blocked their view, but seconds later, a whistling sound, a sudden whoosh, and then a loud impact. When they reached the shore, they saw a glowing yellow dome floating on the surface. It was about 600 to 700 feet away, nearly 200 meters offshore. It wasn't sinking. It wasn't burning. It was floating, and something beneath it seemed to be holding it above the water. At 11:25 p.m., Wickens called the police. Within minutes, multiple calls confirmed the same sighting. Officers arrived expecting a plane crash, but there was one problem. No aircraft had been reported missing. When boats reached the location, they didn't find wreckage. Instead, they found a thick layer of yellow foam floating on the surface. It was about 80 feet wide and nearly half a mile long. It was glowing and smelled like sulfur. Beneath it, bubbles were rising to the surface. Whatever had crashed was no longer visible. By midnight, more boats joined the search. By morning, military divers arrived. They searched the entire area. But officially, they found nothing. No debris, no aircraft, no explanation. But years later, documents would surface suggesting something very different. Because according to internal reports, what crashed that night was never identified as an aircraft. It was labeled a UFO. Years later, the story took a darker turn. In 1993, one of the Navy divers was finally tracked down. He claimed he didn't just see debris. He said there were two objects on the ocean floor, and according to him, divers may have encountered something alive underwater. Soon after sharing this, he refused to speak further. Another witness, a member of the Canadian Air Force, was stationed on a naval vessel after the crash. For an entire week, they were told they were searching for aircraft debris, but none was ever shown. Instead, he overheard something far more disturbing. Divers were talking about two objects, not a submarine, not an aircraft, and not from this planet. Then came one of the most unbelievable claims. According to a military technician, NORAD had tracked the object from Siberia across Canada until it entered the water at Shag Harbor. And then, it didn't stop. It moved underwater toward a classified military zone near Shelburne. For 7 days, multiple U.S. and Canadian naval ships surrounded the area. Divers were sent down not to recover wreckage, but to observe when researchers finally accessed government records. They noticed something strange. Files were missing. Pages were removed. Entire archives from October 1967 were gone. Even official logs appeared altered. And just days after the incident, a cover story appeared. Officials claimed the ships were there to repair a damaged barge, but internal reports told a different story. The object was officially labeled a UFO. Decades later, Scientists returned to the site. Sonar scans revealed something unusual. 4 circular formations arranged in a pattern, each about 16 feet wide. Even experts couldn't explain it. Divers investigated, but found nothing conclusive. No wreckage, no official explanation, no confirmed origin, just witnesses, military activity, and missing records. Whatever entered the water that night was never publicly identified. And maybe that was the point. Because sometimes the real mystery isn't what people saw, it's what was hidden.